When I walked into the certification meeting, the CEO pointed to a folding chair. "Sit over there, Grandpa." Everyone laughed. Cameras were rolling. I just smiled. Within 24 hours, the $58 million milestone was frozen. Hey Reddit, I'm Kai, 47 male. I held off posting this until everything was wrapped up, and I knew I wasn't stepping on anything sensitive. I'm keeping a few specifics vague for obvious reasons. The drive from Baltimore to Pentagon City was supposed to take an hour. That morning, some genius in a BMW decided to play bumper cars on I-95, so I spent 40 minutes watching a tow truck fish his Bavarian engineering out of a guardrail while my phone buzzed. I'd been doing this drive for 20 years, 23 years in defense aviation since I left the Air Force. My girlfriend Charlie had texted twice. First one said she'd pick up groceries on her way home. Second one asked if I wanted chicken or salmon for dinner. Then came the text from my mother. "Your brother says the big meeting is today. We're all so proud of Caleb. Make sure you're supportive, Kai. This is important." That was Susan in a nutshell. 47 years of raising two sons, and she still couldn't send me a message that wasn't really about Caleb. My father, Joseph, was worse. He had given up the pretense somewhere around my 12th birthday when I said I wanted to be an engineer instead of a lawyer like him. Here's the family dynamic in case you're wondering. Caleb is 3 years younger and approximately 300% more charming. VP of Business Development at Stanton Aerospace. Loud, confident, and absolutely convinced that the universe revolves around his $500 haircuts and his ability to shake hands with important people. He drives a car that costs more than my first house, wears expensive watches, and for the past 8 months, he'd been telling everyone at family gatherings that the DoD contract was his masterpiece, his ticket to the C-suite, his moment. Our parents had bought the hype completely. 6 months ago, they'd refinanced their house and taken out a home equity line of credit. $80,000 borrowed against 3 decades of mortgage payments. All because Caleb convinced them his stock options were about to pay out big once the first milestone payment came through. He'd been promising them a $200,000 return on their investment, maybe enough to finally buy that vacation condo in Florida they'd been talking about for years. My mother had called me when they were signing the papers, asked if I thought it was a good idea. I'd told her I didn't know enough about Stanton's financials to comment. She'd said that was just like me to be unsupportive, that Caleb believed in himself and she wished I could do the same. What nobody in my family seemed to realize was that the $58 million milestone payment couldn't be released without my signature. See, I'm a delegated airworthiness signatory for DoD programs. It's a fancy title that basically means I'm the last line of defense before the military writes checks for flight-critical software. I review systems that keep pilots alive, verify compliance with standards that have been written in blood over decades of aviation accidents, sign off on airworthiness determinations that mean the difference between a fighter jet performing correctly and a funeral with full military honors. Without my approval on this particular program, no milestone gate closes, no progress payment gets released, no stock options vest, no vacation condos get purchased. Caleb knew I worked in defense certification. He just never bothered to ask what that actually meant. Why would he? I was just his boring older brother who drove a 10-year-old truck. I finally got to the Pentagon City garage at 9:40, 20 minutes before the meeting, parked my truck between a Mercedes and a Tesla, grabbed my briefcase, and headed for the elevator. The briefcase was worn leather, 15 years old, brass clasps slightly tarnished from use. Looked like something a high school principal would carry to a PTA meeting. That was intentional. People underestimate you when you don't look expensive. I'd built an entire career on that underestimation. Inside were these certification documents, backup copies of everything on a flash drive, and a box of Cuban cigars I'd planned to share after the sign-off. Figured we'd celebrate the milestone closing like professionals. The conference room was on the 14th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Potomac. When I walked in, I immediately spotted Caleb sitting 3 seats down from the CEO, grinning like he'd already won something. He was wearing a suit that probably cost $2,000. He didn't acknowledge me, didn't even glance in my direction, just kept schmoozing with the executives like I wasn't there. Anton Holt, the CEO, looked up from his tablet and gave me the full once-over, shoes to hairline. His eyes lingered on my briefcase, like it personally offended him. Then they moved to my jacket, my tie, my haircut, all of it falling short of whatever standard he'd set in his head. Then he pointed to the corner. Folding chair, metal frame, thin vinyl pad. The kind of chair you sit on at a church basement budget meeting while you contemplate your life choices. It was positioned about 8 feet from the main table, angled toward the wall like an afterthought. Like someone had set it up for a coat rack and then decided a person could sit there instead. "Consultant," Holt said without looking at me again. "Sit over there." This discussion is above your clearance level. A few chuckles around the table. Caleb laughed the loudest, which was impressive since he still hadn't actually looked at me. I set my briefcase down next to the folding chair. Didn't sit. The red light on the security camera in the corner caught my eye. Standard protocol for controlled defense programs. Everything recorded. That little red light was about to become the most expensive LED in Stanton Aerospace's history, but nobody in that room knew it yet. Except me. Holt looked up again, annoyed. I said, sit down. The adults are talking. More laughter. A guy named Garrett, early 30s, started reaching for his phone. Murray gave him a look. Garrett's hand went back to the table. I stayed standing. Folded my arms across my chest. Kept my face completely neutral. There's something you should know before we start. Holt looked at me. What's that? If you want me in that corner chair, I said, keeping my voice level, then by Thursday morning, $58 million in milestone payments won't be part of this program anymore. Dead silence. Caleb's grin flickered, then died completely. Then Garrett laughed out loud. Sure thing, Grandpa. Maybe threaten us with your AARP card next. More nervous laughter from a few others. Holt shook his head like I was a confused old man who'd wandered in looking for the restroom. Enough, he said. Sit down and let the professionals handle this. Now here's the thing about defense aviation that most people don't understand. It's not like regular business where you can cut corners and apologize later. Maybe send out a software patch and hope nobody noticed. The DoD doesn't hand out $58 million checks because you asked nicely and showed up with a PowerPoint presentation. They release milestone payments against certification gates. And those gates don't open without a delegated airworthiness signatory, confirming that the software won't turn a multi-million-dollar aircraft into a very expensive lawn dart. That signatory, for Stanton Aerospace's flight control system contract, was me. 8 months earlier, Stanton had won a DoD contract for next-generation flight control software, military application, redundant processing channels that could handle multiple simultaneous failures, real-time fault detection with automatic failover, the kind of technology that keeps fighter pilots alive when everything goes sideways at Mach 2 and 30,000 feet. Total contract value was around $170 million across 3 phases. The first milestone payment, $58 million, was contingent on passing the initial airworthiness certification review, which required my signature. I'd been assigned to the program the day the contract was finalized. The DoD likes continuity on critical programs. One airworthiness signatory from start to finish, tracking every decision, every document, every line of code that might matter when lives are on the line. Caleb had been so focused on the business development side, the handshakes and the golf outings and the expensive dinners, that he'd never bothered to check who was assigned to the technical certification. Holt pulled up his presentation on the wall screen. Timelines, technical specifications, confident projections about delivery dates that I already knew they couldn't hit. He talked like he was briefing 4-star generals, except he'd clearly never actually briefed a general in his life. Murray, the finance director, spoke up. He was early 60s, gray hair, calm demeanor. One of the few people in the room who looked like he'd actually been around the block a few times. These deployment schedules are aggressive, he said carefully. They're necessary, not aggressive, Holt shot back. That's why we're here. Final certification sign-off. Get the government sign-off. Release the milestone payment. Start phase 2. I shifted my briefcase from one hand to the other. The motion caught a few glances. You can leave that outside, Holt said without looking at me. We don't need consultants weighing in on technical matters. I'll keep it here. The case contains the certification authorization documents. Long pause. Several people looked up from their tablets. Caleb finally turned to look at me. First time since I'd walked in. He looked confused. We're here to finalize the certification, Holt said, his voice harder now. Certifications require proper authorization. Holt folded his hands on the table like a professor about to explain something to a slow student. And who exactly do you represent? The Department of Defense. Caleb's face went blank. Kai, what do you mean? His voice cracked when he said my name. I met his eyes and held them. That's my job. You're the airworthiness signatory? Holt asked. I'm the delegated airworthiness signatory assigned to this program. Without my signature on the airworthiness determination, no milestone gate closes. No payment gets released. That's not what we were told. Nobody asked the right person. His expression changed. The kind of look you get when you realize you've made a serious mistake. Caleb's voice went up an octave. This is a conflict of interest. He's my brother. He can't be objective. I turned to look at him directly. I disclosed our relationship to the DoD contracting office the day I was assigned. 8 months ago. They reviewed the program structure, confirmed you have zero involvement in the technical certification package, documented the firewall between business development and airworthiness review, and cleared me to proceed. The disclosure memo is in my briefcase. 3 copies, signed, dated, and filed. Want to see it? He didn't have an answer for that. Murray spoke up. He's listed as primary airworthiness signatory on all our DoD filings. Has been from the beginning. Holt's voice got colder. This meeting was supposed to be about final coordination. Final coordination requires someone who can approve the certification, or deny it. A woman named Celeste, one of the board members, flipped through her contract copy with increasing intensity. She stopped on a page near the back. There's something here about a conduct provision. Section 15. Murray read from the document, enunciating each word clearly. It ties certification approval to professional conduct during all compliance proceedings. Any documented behavior that materially damages working relationships allows for immediate certification suspension. Garrett stopped smirking. The color drained from his face. Without prior notice? Without prior notice, I confirmed. It's standard language for controlled defense programs. Your lawyers drafted it 8 months ago. Our lawyers approved that language, Holt said, but his voice had lost its edge. They drafted it. At my specific request. Because I've seen what happens when companies don't take certification oversight seriously. Murray glanced at the security camera. The red light was steady. This meeting is being recorded. Standard protocol, Holt said quickly. Yes, for documentation. Celeste spoke up again. Has this conduct clause ever been triggered? Once. Contractor lost their airworthiness authorization. Out of business in 6 months. 200 people looking for jobs. 3 years of development down the drain. I paused for effect. Over a similar misunderstanding about professional courtesy. Holt stood up so fast his chair hit the wall behind him with a bang that made half the room flinch. We're taking 15. The hallway outside was chaos. The kind where everyone's talking in whispers and nobody wants to be the first to say what they're all thinking. Board members clustered in small groups. I could see them replaying the meeting in their heads, trying to figure out where everything had gone wrong. Caleb caught up to me near the water fountain. His face was red. His hands were shaking. I'd never seen him like this. The guy who could charm his way through any room, any meeting, any situation. Now he looked like someone had kicked his legs out from under him. What are you doing? This is my contract, my career. Your CEO just pointed me to a folding chair and called me grandpa. On camera. In front of 12 witnesses. So what? That's just how Anton is. You're going to tank a $58 million payment because your feelings got hurt? I'm going to uphold airworthiness standards. That's my job. Has been for 23 years. Your job is to rubber stamp paperwork. That's all you've ever been, Kai. A bureaucrat with a briefcase. Nobody in this industry takes you seriously. That's interesting. Because right now, I'm the only person in this building whose signature matters. I walked away from him and found a quiet corner near the stairwell. Pulled out my secure phone and called Lenny. Lenny had been my partner for 11 years. Former Air Force, like me. We'd served together at Edwards, testing systems that were supposed to work and sometimes didn't. He was 5'6", built like a fireplug. He was also the best documentation specialist I'd ever met. The kind of guy who could find a discrepancy in a 1,000-page technical manual while eating a sandwich. Go ahead, he answered. Initiate the certification hold. Program 749er-Alpha. Brief pause. I could hear him typing. Full hold, 48 hours. Professional conduct violation, security footage available, multiple witnesses. Copy that. Lenny's voice had a hint of amusement. How bad was it? Folding chair. Called me grandpa. Told me the discussion was above my clearance level. Lenny whistled. The old folding chair gambit. Classic power move. Saw it backfire beautifully about 5 years ago on another program. You know what this reminds me of? Don't say it. That scene in Goodfellas where Tommy thinks he's getting made, and instead he gets, yeah, I know the scene. Just file the paperwork. DoD notification goes out 0800 tomorrow. I'll have the documentation package ready by noon. Video clips, witness list, timeline, the whole thing. And Kai? Yeah? Tell me you got it on camera. Security system was recording the whole time. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. This is going to be one for the training manual. He paused. You okay? I'm fine. Just another day in defense aviation. Sure. Another day where you watch your brother's company implode because his boss couldn't resist being a jerk. Totally normal Tuesday. I hung up and walked back toward the conference room. Holt was waiting near the door. He looked smaller somehow. Look, he said. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe. You could have clarified your role from the start. I tried. You told me to sit in the corner. He didn't have a response for that. I walked past him. Back inside, the room was trying to reset. Papers shuffled. Coffee poured. People avoided making eye contact with me. Holt clicked to his next slide, but the confidence in his voice was gone. As we were discussing, the deployment timeline requires immediate certification sign-off. I cleared my throat. All eyes turned to me. There's been a development. Holt's face went pale. What development? The DoD will receive formal notification tomorrow morning that this certification is under administrative review. What kind of review? Conduct assessment. Standard procedure when professional standards are questioned during certification proceeding. Caleb stood up fast. This is personal. You're doing this because you've always been jealous of me. I'm doing this because your CEO demonstrated that this company doesn't take certification oversight seriously. That's a safety issue. When the guy responsible for signing off on flight-critical software gets pointed to a folding chair and mocked in front of the entire leadership team, that tells me everything I need to know about how this company approaches quality control. Holt slammed his hand on the table. This is blackmail. This is consequences. Celeste spoke up, her voice tight. What would it take to stop the review? I looked around the table slowly, made eye contact with each person. Nothing. It's already in motion. I picked up my briefcase. Review notification goes out 0800 tomorrow. Initial documentation package to DoD procurement. By Thursday noon. Final determination follows leadership review. I walked out. I don't remember you sacrificing anything for me. Don't be dramatic. I paid for my own college, Mom. I paid for my own flight training. I bought my own house. Every major milestone in my adult life, I handled myself because you two were too busy investing in Caleb's future to notice I existed. That's not fair. It's the truth. My father got on the line. His voice was cold. Fix this, Kai. Whatever your brother did to upset you, get over it. Caleb's CEO humiliated me on camera. Caleb laughed. So what? You think respect is free? You earn it by helping people who matter. Right now, Caleb matters. And I don't. You've never mattered. You've always been the difficult one. The stubborn one. The one who had to do everything the hard way instead of accepting help. The help you never offered. Fix this, Kai, or you're not part of this family anymore. I hung up. Sat in my truck in the parking lot for a minute, processing. Then I drove home. Charlie was supposed to get there around 7. She texted that she was running late. Traffic. I made myself a sandwich and waited. She walked in around 7:30. Set down grocery bags, looked at me, and something was different. The sweet girlfriend act was slipping. I just talked to your mother. I know. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table. Kai, I need you to understand what you're doing here. This affects us. Our future. What future? The house we've been looking at. The life we talked about building. Caleb told me if the certification goes through, his stock options would be worth close to $300,000. Your parents would be fine. We could finally move forward with everything we've been waiting for. When did you talk to Caleb about his stock option? She hesitated, just long enough for me to notice. We've been talking. He's your brother. I wanted to understand what was happening with the family. How long? A few weeks? Maybe a month? A month. You've been texting my brother for a month behind my back. I was trying to help everyone get on the same page. You never tell me anything about your work, because my work is classified. If I'd known you had this kind of power, I could have helped you see how important it was to just sign off and support your family. You could have helped me compromise my professional integrity. I could have helped you be a team player for once. I looked at her for a long moment. 2 years together. Dinners. Vacations. Conversations about the future. And the whole time, she'd been building relationships with my family that I didn't know about, positioning herself for whatever outcome benefited her most. Your mother thinks you're having a breakdown, she said. That you're jealous of Caleb because he's more successful than you. Did she tell you to say that? We all think it. I just didn't want to believe it until... Charlie, get out. Excuse me? I said get out. Pack whatever you need tonight. I'll box up the rest of your stuff and leave it on the porch. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You've been working my family behind my back for a month, gathering intel, positioning yourself for whatever outcome benefits you most. She stood up. Her face had gone cold. The mask was completely off now. Fine. But when this blows up in your face and you realize you've destroyed everything, don't come crawling back to me. I won't. She grabbed her purse and left, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I sat in the quiet for a while, thought about calling someone, decided against it, made myself dinner. The next morning, Lenny was waiting at the office with a stack of documents and 2 cups of gas station coffee. He was grinning. How bad is it for them? I asked. Stanton's going to be flagged in the system within 24 hours. Any active certifications held pending review. 4 programs total. About $200 million in pending payments across the board. He slid a folder across the desk. But that's not the interesting part. What's the interesting part? I did some digging last night. Couldn't sleep. You know how I get when something doesn't add up. I knew. Lenny had once spent 3 days tracking down a discrepancy in a certification package that turned out to be a typo. But the typo had masked a real problem. And that problem would have killed people. He trusted his instincts. Your brother's been busy, he continued. Turns out Caleb knew you were assigned as the airworthiness signatory. He found out 3 months ago. I stared at him. What? Internal email from Stanton's contracts office? They flagged the potential conflict of interest just like they're supposed to, and sent it up the chain for review. Your brother was copied on the distribution. He replied acknowledging receipt, timestamp, digital signature, the whole thing. He knew, Kai. He knew for 3 months and he didn't say a word. Not to you, not to Holt, not to anyone. Why would he keep that quiet? Lenny shrugged. Maybe he figured he could manage you. Big brother who always bails him out when things get tough. Maybe he thought you'd just sign off because family loyalty trumps professional integrity. Or maybe he was setting me up to take the blame if anything went wrong. That too. Oh, I had no idea my brother was the airworthiness signatory. What a coincidence. He must have approved it because we're family, not because the technical work was sound. Either way, he wins and you're the bad guy. I leaned back in my chair. He knew. This whole time he knew. And he let Holt humiliate me anyway. Gets better. Lenny pulled out another document. Your girlfriend, Charlie? Maiden name is Hartley. She went to Penn State same years as your brother. Same business school. Same professional fraternity. They knew each other before? Lenny slid a printout across the desk. Photo from 2018. Business fraternity formal. Charlie and Caleb standing close together. Her hand on his arm. Both smiling at the camera. My stomach dropped. Now, I'm not saying anything definitive, Lenny said carefully. Could be coincidence. People meet through mutual connections all the time. But your brother introduces you to a woman he went to college with, who turns out to be very interested in your career details, who's been texting him behind your back for at least a month. That's a pattern worth noticing. I sat with that for a minute. 2 years with Charlie, and now this photo, this connection I never knew about. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe Caleb really did just think we'd hit it off. Maybe she reconnected with him recently because of family stuff. Or maybe I'd been played. Not necessarily some elaborate scheme from day one, but at minimum, they'd been coordinating behind my back. At minimum, she'd chosen his side over mine. At minimum, there was a relationship there that she'd hidden for 2 years. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. She was gone. The truth could stay murky. Lenny watched me process it. You okay? I'll be fine. What else you got? My secure phone buzzed. Text from Murray at Stanton. Can we talk? Off the record. I showed Lenny. Interesting, he said. The finance guy wants to chat. Think he's trying to save his own skin? Only one way to find out. I called Murray back. He answered on the first ring. Mr. Parker, thank you for calling. I wanted you to know something. I'm listening. I've been documenting issues at Stanton for 2 years. Quality control shortcuts, schedule pressure overriding safety protocols, Holt dismissing concerns from the engineering team, red flags that got buried because raising them meant getting labeled as not a team player. I have records, emails, meeting notes, internal memos that got deleted from the company servers, but not from my personal backups. Why are you telling me this? Because I've been waiting for someone to actually do something about it. I raised concerns through proper channels 3 times, got shut down every time. Holt called me a pessimist, said I didn't understand the business realities, and because I have a daughter who's a pilot in the Navy. She flies F-18S off carriers. I don't want her or anyone like her flying anything that got certified by a company that treats oversight personnel like furniture. That's a good reason. I spent 20 years at Boeing before this. I know what good safety culture looks like. Stanton isn't it. Never was. I should have left a year ago, but I kept hoping things would change. Now I'm just hoping the damage can be contained. Send me what you have. I will. Everything I've got. And Mr. Parker, thank you. For not backing down. For not just signing off because it was easier. There aren't enough people like you in this industry. He hung up. Lenny was grinning again. Looks like we've got an inside man. Looks like it. This just got a lot more interesting. Wednesday evening, my phone rang. Colonel Celeste Hayes from Pentagon Procurement Review. Mr. Parker, I'm calling about the Stanton Aerospace Review. Finished the preliminary assessment this afternoon. What did you find? Documentation is comprehensive. Security footage is crystal clear. We pulled the recording from 3 different angles. The moment where he points at the folding chair is going to be used in training materials for years. Multiple witnesses, including 4 board members who've already submitted statements distancing themselves from Holt's behavior. And we received some additional materials from an internal source that paint a very concerning picture of the company's overall approach to safety compliance. Murray's documents had made it through. Good. Recommendation? Immediate suspension from all active certifications. Enhanced oversight requirements for any future programs. Minimum 18 months before reinstatement can even be considered. Josephly, given what we found in those internal documents, I'd recommend they never get reinstated, but that's above my pay grade. When does it go final? Report to Pentagon leadership tomorrow morning at 0700. Official notification to Stanton by end of business Thursday. They'll have until Friday to respond, but there's nothing they can say that's going to change the outcome. Thank you, Colonel. One more thing, Mr. Parker. The materials from the internal source documented a pattern of behavior going back 2 years. Shortcuts on testing protocols. Schedule pressure overriding safety concerns. Engineers being told to sign off on incomplete verification. This was a company culture problem from top to bottom. I figured as much. The professional standards initiative we've been developing? Your case is going to be the pilot program. The way you handled this? That's exactly what we want to see replicated across the industry. We'd like you involved in building it out. I'd be interested in discussing that. Good. We'll talk after the dust settles. Which should be about the time Stanton's valuation turns into a yard sale. She hung up. Thursday morning, Holt called. His voice sounded like someone had let all the air out of him. It's over, isn't it? You'll have official notification this afternoon. 18-month suspension. Our lawyers say that's a death sentence for a company our size. We can't survive 18 months without DoD work. Probably not. You destroyed us. No, you did. Over a folding chair. Over respect. The board fired me an hour ago. I heard. For what it's worth, I get it now. What I did wrong. Do you? Respect isn't something you give people after they prove they deserve it. It's baseline. It's how you treat everyone who walks through the door. That's a start. Too late, but it's a start. He hung up. Thursday evening, Caleb showed up at my apartment. Lenny had bet me $20 he'd come before the weekend. I owed him dinner now. He looked bad. You happy now? Not particularly. You destroyed everything. My career. Mom and Dad's retirement. Ashley's talking about lawyers. Ashley is his wife, by the way. That's rough? That's rough? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Caleb? You knew I was assigned to your certification. You knew for 3 months. You could have pulled me aside. Could have told Holt to show some basic professionalism. Instead, you let him mock me on camera and you laughed. I didn't think, no, you didn't. You never do. You just assume everything will work out because it always has. This was supposed to be my moment. And you could have shared it. We could have been on the same team. Brothers working together on a major defense contract. But you couldn't do that, could you? You needed me to be invisible while you took all the credit. He was quiet for a moment. The Charlie thing. We stayed in touch after I introduced you two. She'd ask about family stuff. Update me on how you were doing. You were keeping tabs on me through my girlfriend. It wasn't like that. Not at first. But when the certification assignment came up, she started asking more questions. About your work. About how you'd handle pressure. I should have told you, but you didn't. No. I figured if things got complicated, she could help smooth things over. Talk you into being reasonable. Yeah, you mean do what you wanted. I'm sorry. Sorry that it didn't work? He didn't answer. Go home, Caleb. Fix your marriage if you can. Find a new job. But don't come back here expecting me to feel bad for you. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. He left without another word. I closed the door and made dinner. 6 months later, Stanton Aerospace filed for bankruptcy. 218 people out of work. The flight control system that was supposed to be the future of military aviation would never see production. 3 years of development, $170 million in contract value, all gone. Because one CEO couldn't resist the urge to mock an old guy with a worn-out briefcase. The bankruptcy proceedings were messy. Finger-pointing everywhere. Board members blaming Holt. Holt blaming the board. Lawyers making more money than anyone else in the room. Same story you see every time a company this size goes under. Murray had landed on his feet. His documentation had helped the DoD investigators understand exactly how bad things were at Stanton. The problems went deeper than anyone had realized. Shortcuts on testing protocols, engineers being pressured to sign off on incomplete work, safety concerns getting buried under schedule pressure. The folding chair thing was just the tip of it. Murray was consulting now, helping other companies build the kind of compliance culture that Stanton never had. We grabbed lunch every few weeks. Good guy. His daughter was stationed in San Diego, flying F-18S off carriers. Every time we talked, he mentioned how grateful he was that she wasn't flying anything Stanton had built. Caleb had been let go 3 months after the suspension hit. Officially, it was a restructuring. Unofficially, the new leadership wanted nothing to do with anyone connected to the Holt era. Couldn't blame them. Last I heard through the family grapevine, he was working at a car dealership in Virginia. Not selling cars. Doing paperwork in the back office. Processing title transfers and loan application. Filing documents for minimum wage plus whatever commission the actual salespeople didn't want. Apparently, Ashley had gone through with the divorce. She'd kept the house, the car, and most of their savings. Caleb was living in an apartment now, a 1-bedroom in a complex that advertised move-in specials to attract tenants. A long way from the McMansion, he'd been planning to buy with his stock option windfall. My parents lost their house. The HELOC payments became unmanageable once Caleb's income disappeared and his stock options turned worthless. They'd had to sell at a loss and move into a rental apartment in a part of town they'd always looked down on. My mother had sent me 2 emails blaming me for everything. Long, rambling emails about how I'd always been selfish, how I'd never supported the family, how I'd destroyed their retirement out of spite. I'd read them, considered responding, decided there was nothing to say that would change anything. They'd made their choice decades ago. Now they were living with the consequences. My father hadn't contacted me at all. 6 months of radio silence, probably for the best. Anything he said would just be a variation on the same theme. I'd failed to be a team player, failed to put family first, failed to do what I was told. Charlie had moved on within a month. New boyfriend, some finance guy with a corner office, and a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords. Exactly what she'd been shopping for all along. I hoped they'd be very happy together, in the way you hope your ex's new car breaks down on the highway. Lenny knocked on my office door and walked in with his usual gas station coffee. He'd been promoted to senior documentation lead for the new professional standards initiative. Bigger office, same terrible coffee. Seen the news? He dropped a printout on my desk. Pentagon finalizes professional standards initiative. New oversight requirements for defense contractors. I skimmed the article. Conduct compliance programs. Certification authority protections. Mandatory respect training for contractor executives. They specifically named you as director, Lenny said. $12 million over 3 years. Plus, the satisfaction of knowing every defense contractor's CEO in the country is going to think twice before pointing at a folding chair. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Kai. Mr. Parker. This is Rebecca Holt. I recognized the name. Anton Holt's daughter. I'd read about her in the business coverage of Stanton's collapse. Stanford MBA. Had worked at the company for 2 years before everything fell apart. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you for holding my father accountable. Thank me? He treated everyone that way. Employees, vendors, family, even me. The bankruptcy forced him to actually look at himself for the first time in 30 years. He's getting help now, actually listening when people talk. That's good. I'm starting my own company, defense consulting, helping contractors build better workplace cultures before they end up like my father's company. Prevention instead of punishment. Sounds like important work. I want you as an advisor because you held a line that needed to be held, because this industry needs more people willing to enforce standards instead of looking the other way. Send me the business plan. I'll take a look. But Rebecca? Yes? If you ever point anyone at a folding chair, I'll shut you down just as fast. She laughed. I'd expect nothing less. After she hung up, Lenny was still standing there, grinning like an idiot. What? You're going soft in your old age. I'm being practical. Better to help build good companies than spend all my time tearing down bad ones. So you're taking the Pentagon job? I picked up my phone, started typing a response to Colonel Hayes. What are you telling her? That I'm interested. With conditions. Full authority on conduct violation. Real-time documentation requirements. Mandatory training for all contractor executives who interact with certification personnel. Think they'll agree? If they want it to work, they don't have a choice. Within 30 seconds, my phone buzzed. All conditions approved. Start date negotiable. Looking forward to working with you? That evening, I found the Cuban cigars I'd packed in my briefcase 8 months earlier. Still in the box. Never opened. I'd meant to share them after the certification sign-off. I put the cigars back in my briefcase. The next morning, I drove back to Pentagon City. Same building. Different conference room. Different energy entirely. When I walked in, 12 defense contractor executives stood up from their chairs and waited for me to sit before taking their own seats. Lenny was there too, sitting in the corner with his coffee, tablet ready to document everything. He caught my eye and gave me a nod. I set my briefcase on the table and looked around the room. Some of them looked nervous, some curious. All of them knew why they were here. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first agenda item. Lenny, still in the corner, muttered just loud enough for me to hear, "This is like the end of the Shawshank Redemption. Except instead of a beach in Mexico, you got a government pension and a really nice view of the Potomac." I almost smiled. Some lessons are worth the wait. Respect isn't something you give people after they prove they deserve it. It's baseline. When you're certifying software that keeps pilots alive, everyone at the table matters. And when you forget that, when you decide some people are worth less than others based on how expensive their watch is, it doesn't matter how smart you are. You'll end up explaining to an empty boardroom why your company doesn't exist anymore. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.